Well, hey everybody, thanks for coming out to Email Design Tips for 2010. My name's Richard and I'm the Education and Training Manager here. I make video demos and things like that. So, what are we going to talk about here in today's webinar? We're going to look at essential email elements for your email design. We're going to look at the easy ways to modify those designs in vertical response, and also these ways can also be useful outside of vertical response too, I'm sure. And we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of email. That's not going to happen necessarily in that order. These are just all the things we're going to talk about. Really, we'll be talking about the elements of email design and then talking about how to modify those designs, and then what to do and not to do while we go along. So I'll be spending about half the time inside an account demoing how to do different things, and the other half of the time here in this presentation. There will also, of course, be a Q&A session at the very end. So if you do think of questions for me while I'm presenting, please send those questions my way using the question box that you should see right up there on your screen in GoToWebinar, and I will answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A session. Also, just so you know, there will be a follow-up email that goes out on Monday. That follow-up email will link to the recorded version of this presentation, and also it will link to the slides as well. So if you're interested in having either of those things, you will get access to them on Monday. But with that said, let's get started here. So first, what are the essential email elements? Well, it's pretty basic and straightforward. It's the things that you would probably think of. You have your header, so your from and subject line of your email. Then you have the layout itself, how everything is actually put into your message. Usually this means that you're choosing a layout in vertical response and plugging your own content in. You have your offer or your articles. So if you're doing some sort of sale or product promotion, you have your offer there. If you do a newsletter of some kind with information, then you have your articles that you're referring to. You also have your media like pictures and videos and things like that. And then this isn't in your email, of course, but you also have to concern yourself with the follow-up to your email and the reporting that you get back once your email goes out. So we'll talk about that too and things you should be doing in 2010. So first, let's talk a bit about the header of your email message. First, you have your from label, of course, and I talk about this in a lot of presentations, and it's pretty straightforward what you should be doing with your from label. There's not really anything fancy you can change with that, no matter what the year is, to do more with it. The most important thing with your from label is pick a name and stick with it. This name should usually be the name of your company or your own name if you are directly connected to your company. It's just important that the name you use be a name that all of your recipients will recognize, because when they see that from label, that's where they look to see if they know the person mailing them. And if you think about the way you approach your own email, if you don't know the person or company who's mailing you, you're probably unlikely to open the email that you get from them. So that can affect your open rate. With your subject line, you know, things stay true with subject lines forever, whatever, again, the year happens to be. You want to keep your subject line short. It's like the headline of a newspaper article. You don't want to go over the top. It should be easy to read in 1 second and get the point. It should describe what your email is about. I see a lot of newsletters that go out saying July newsletter, August newsletter, and while that's very nice and it describes that, hey, it's the newsletter from this company, it would be better to describe what's actually in the newsletter and what's differentiating it from the last one that went out that gives people more of a reason to open the email up. Also, you can refer to the person taking an action of some kind or receiving something. Don't necessarily be passive with your subject line. Already be, telling the person that they're going to take some action with your email when they open it up. And we'll look at some samples here in a second to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Also, be cool. By that, I don't mean that you have to try to sound really cool in your subject line. I just mean that don't go over the top trying to get the attention of your recipients. Just keep it short, be descriptive, as I've already said, and refer to an action. You don't have to be screaming for attention with exclamation points and lots of words like that would get attention, like free. You don't have to do that. You just have to describe what it's about. And then test your subject lines out too. You don't have to, go in blind with these things. You can do testing within vertical response to see, what kind of content's going to work better. You can split your list up into smaller groups, which I'll show you briefly how to do in an account. And then what you can do with that then is say, I want to test one subject line to one group, test another subject line to another group, see which one works better with among those two groups, and I'm going to use that best subject line with the remaining people on my list. Again, I'm going to illustrate that in the account, so if that didn't sound too clear yet, it'll be much clearer when we actually take a closer look at it. So now let's look at some example subject lines. So these are fairly clever, interesting subject lines that we like here. Here we have a subject line called "Sometimes all you need is a little vase lift," and they're selling vases in the email. How clever of them! We've got you covered from head to toe with a company that sells clothing. Take your pick. Our 9 favorite dresses. This is nice because it's saying exactly what's going to be in here. 9 popular dresses. That tells you why you want to look at the dresses and that you can actually access all 9 and take your pick of them. Party like it's 1999 aged Cabernet special. That's a very good wine subject line. Bring this email to a Gap store and win. Here's exactly why you should open this email up and take action with it. Open it, print it, bring it in. You need to open this up to take advantage of what you're going to get from Gap. And temperatures fall, style rises. So we're dealing with it becoming colder, but there's still style to be found inside of this email. Now, obviously, these are not generic in any way, these subject lines I've just described, but you can still learn from them that, be descriptive, be interesting, but also action-oriented things are always better. I would say bring this email to a Gap store might be the best subject line here simply because it's telling you to take action with the message that you need to open it up to get to actually get access to what they're talking about there. Then I have some sample subject lines here on the slide. I mostly showed this kind of show some bad from labels and bad subject lines. Here we see the from labels are pretty much all wrong. From holiday gift. I don't personally know a holiday gift, or consumer surveys, or gift card giveaway, or rewards department, or market research. I would look at that right away and probably not open any of those emails because who are those companies? Also on the subject lines, you can see for the most part they did okay. Take our market research survey, there's an action there. $500 JCPenney shopping spree, there is some action there that sounds very nice. However, gift card giveaway does not sound like a company who I would trust on that. But the subject lines are okay, only one of them was too long and went over the room in the inbox. So you see why you want to keep your subject line short. If you go on too long, people won't see your full subject and they're not going to get the impact of it. And that can have an effect because about half of the people who receive your email will decide whether to open it up or not based on what you say in your subject line. So now let's talk about the layout of your email. That's a very important thing, that you know what kind of layout you want to have going in when you're building your message, because you want to fit the layout to the type of message you're sending. A newsletter is obviously going to have a different kind of layout than something that's talking about a single product that you're offering. Inside this layout, you want to use colors that match your website or your brand. That way the layout actually ties back to your own brand. When people open it up, they can see this email is clearly connected to your company. And if you like a layout that you've used or one that you've altered, do know that you can copy emails that you've sent out in the past to actually use as templates again and again. This is not something that's directly obvious in your account, but it is something you can do, and it's a very nice way to not have to do a lot of legwork over and over again for each new email that you create and send out. With that in mind, let's actually go into an account right now and look at some of these things I've talked about. I want to look at testing subject lines, and I want to look at picking a layout and changing the colors in that layout just to show you how easy that is to do, and also show you how you can copy emails to use as templates. So let's jump into an account here, just like that. So first thing we're going to do is actually look at editing a layout and changing a layout here. So first let's look at choosing a layout. So I'm going to go up here to choose layout in the upper left hand corner. Many of you have, I'm sure, done this in the past. You also may not use the email canvas as your editor. You may be using the wizard or something else. And obviously our tools are going to change down the line. Just what's important is what goes into choosing this layout, not necessarily exactly how you do it, because you might do it slightly differently on your own, but just to give you an idea of how these things work. So I'm going to go up here and change layout. Now in our Canvas editor, we have 250 different layouts to choose from. And you can see there are a lot of different kinds of layouts with different themes. We have these generic business layouts over here. We have some e-card layouts here. We have different industries, seasons, holidays, all that. But don't really think about what the theme is of the layout so much as whether it's laid out like you want your own email to be laid out. And you can flip through these to see which one you like. I could say, let's look at this particular layout here. Is that the one that I want to use? Maybe, but maybe not. Let's actually go back and change layout and pick another one. Maybe I'll choose one from the e-card category. I'll go with this one, or maybe even this one right here. And just like that, I've chosen my new layout. So what's really important when choosing a layout is not, again, the content, because you can change all of that on your own. It's just important that it fit the message that you're trying to do. And we're going to talk about what the actual content of your message in a moment and what you want to do with that content. And so we'll come back to layouts as we do that. But for now, I want to show you how you can alter a layout that you've selected. So first, when you choose your layout, you can do lots of different things with it. For one, you're not stuck with anything that's in here. If you don't like the image that's in here, you can always just delete it and replace it with another one. So I deleted that default image. I can now go to the library here and choose any image that I've previously uploaded to my account or found in the free stock photo gallery, or I can actually upload more images here too. But I'm just going to grab an image quickly just to show you how easy it is, or as quickly as I will be allowed to as the library is taking its time loading. While it's loading up all my images, I have a lot of them in here. You can see if you wanted to upload more, you just browse your computer for more images to upload. That could not be any more straightforward, I don't think, than it is. But there we go. Now my images are pulled in. So do I want a picture of some ice cream, or do I want a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge? I guess that would depend on what my email was about, but in this case I'll just choose the Golden Gate Bridge and insert it. And there we go. Now the image has been very quickly and easily changed. Now also, I may want to change all these colors in each background to match my own website and my own content, my own brand. So I'm going to go through and do that. I want to change some of these background colors. So I'm going to change the background color for this section of text down here. And I'm going to just click within that section. And then I'm going to click Table Cell Properties right there and say, let's make that background color something else. And there we go. Now, if you're having trouble actually matching that to your site, you don't want to have to scroll through all the colors till you find the right match. You notice here, there's also a place for an HTML color code. So if you design your own website, you can actually take the code of colors for the colors from your site and just type them in there. If you don't design your own website, but you need that number, then your designer could certainly provide it to you so that you could just type it in and without having to search through all the colors. When you enter the color code, you just have to be sure to include a number sign in front of it and then go from there. Otherwise, you just use what I just showed to browse for colors. So I could do the same thing up here. We could do a different color. Let's see how ugly I can make this email by choosing random colors in my design. That won't actually be the goal. Hopefully I won't make it look too bad. But there you see. It's very simple. Each section I can change my colors and make those edits. I could also add a border here if I wanted to. If I chose the entire layout, I could put a border around it. I just click right at the top of the layout to choose that. Go to Edit Table Properties and then use the border option to choose a border color. You can also change the color of the document itself. So if I wanted to change the color of what was around the layout, I can go to Document Properties to do that. So I can go there and I can go background color. And let's say I want to do, this is my background color. And there we go. Everything is all set. So you can very easily manipulate that. So just to illustrate again that how easy it is to alter the look of a layout in terms of the colors and pictures that are within it, it only takes a few moments to make those changes. And then there they are ready to go. And we're going to come back to this when we talk about content, but that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do within your layout to edit it. So let's talk about a few other things that I mentioned before. Let's talk about testing subject lines and how you can do that. So just to go back to what I was saying about subject lines, a subject line is a very important part of people actually opening your email up and taking action with it. So it's important that your subject lines be good, be interesting, and make people want to open your email. But there's no magic bullet of subject lines just to make your subject lines great. Your audience may be different from another audience. So you have to make sure things are targeted to what they would be interested in hearing. You should already be somewhat aware of that. If they become your customers, they obviously like what you have to say already, what you're selling. So you can go with the same things you're already doing, but you want to make sure that you can shorten that and make it interesting in the room you have in a subject. So to test out subject lines, how that would work. So let's say you're thinking of doing an offer over the next 2 weeks or your newsletter over the next 2 weeks. And so you're thinking of some subject lines for it, but you're not sure which one is the best. What you can do is use the segments tool under lists to split your mailing list into multiple parts so you can do testing. And you don't just have to test subject lines with this, you can test anything with it, but subject line is the example we're using here in the presentation. So I could say I want to split my list into 3 parts. One part will be 10% of my list, another part will be another 10%, and then the remaining part will be the remaining 80% of my list. And then I'm going to test my 2 subject lines in those first 2 10% lists, see which one works best with those smaller groups, and then I'll use that more successful subject line with my main group, the remaining 80%. So to do something like that in segments, I would just go to Segments, New Segment, and I'm going to set up a test here. I just give my segment a name for my own reference. Then I go to Choose Segment Type. I can leave all of this alone. I go to Save and Build Segment. Then I choose which lists I'm going to be working with. I'll just choose my master list because I want to mail everyone. Click Done. I can just click Save and get results from there because all I have to do is choose my list. This brings up a little preview page where I can see everyone that's on the list that I chose. I'm just going to click Save there. And now this brings up the page where I can set up my lists so that they can be tested. So I'm going to go here to Multiple Lists and then say I want to create 3 lists. You can create any number that you want. So I put 3 in and click Update. Now I can give each of my lists a name. So test number 1, test number 2, and then we'll call this main list here. And now I set percentages for each list. I'm going to say 10 in this one, 10 in this one, and 80 in this one. So now with that the way it is, a random 10% will go there, a random 10% will go there, and the remaining 80% will go there. So with that done, I click Create Lists. And now these lists are created, and you can see how they've been split up with the number of records in each list. So now if I go back to the main mailing list page, I see each of these lists ready for me to use. My test number 1, test number 2, and my main list that I've created there. That had no impact on my master list. It's still the same. It just created these new segments from that I can use and delete when I'm done with them. So now I would create 3 copies of my email. If I go back over here to Emails, I can go to Actions, Make a Copy. So I can create 3 copies of this email and then try the 2 subject lines with 2 copies and then choose the best subject line in the other one. And that's how you would test your subject. Now also I mentioned how you can copy an email and use it as a template for another email. So to show you how to do that, well, you would just go back to Actions and click that Make a Copy button. So you can actually set up an email as a template. If you never send it out, it's a draft in your account. So you can actually name it template. So I could say I never sent this email out, but I really like it. So I'm going to name it "2010 template," save it. There it is. I know what it is now. I can always go to Actions, Make a Copy, to make a copy of it, to do my January newsletter, copy email. And now the January news is there ready for me to edit it and send it out. So you can make copies of emails from your drafts folder and also from your sent email. So any email you've sent out, you can also go to Actions, Make a Copy there. So you can use any email you've sent as a template for a new email as well. So there we go. Some of the things we talked about illustrated, but now let's go back into the presentation and talk about some more stuff. So what about the actual content of your email, your offers and your articles? Just some things to keep in mind with the content. You want to keep it varied so you keep people interested in what you have to say. If you say the same things over and over again in your emails, eventually people will stop opening your emails. It's the same thing with if you got a subscription to a magazine and they talked about the same things in every magazine, you probably would stop reading the magazine and cancel your subscription. Same thing is true of email. So keep things interesting and varied, and I'm going to show you some examples of how some companies have done that here in a moment. You want to make sure your email is easy to scan. This is another thing I hammer in a lot of my presentations. When someone opens your email up, you have around 20 seconds to actually get them to take action with it and read through it. That's not a lot of time. They may spend more time with it after that initial 20 seconds, but that's when you're grabbing them and pulling them in. So you want to make sure it's easy for people to get the full content of your email, actually read through it in around 20 seconds or less. And we're going to see some examples of that too. If you're doing a lot of information in your email, or even just product information, tie that to a blog. In this day and age, you should have a blog for your website, for your company. And having a blog is a great way and having an email newsletter is a great way to promote your blog, and having a blog is not a bad way to promote your newsletter. They can work together in that. That's what we do here at Vertical Response. Our CEO writes a number of blog posts every week about doing better email and with ideas for email and marketing in general. And then in our newsletter, we'll actually link back to those articles that she's written. So you should do the same thing with your own newsletters if you can. In your content, include very clear call to actions, because you want people to go back to your website, be it to your blog or to make a purchase on your site. And to get them to do that, it needs to be clear how they should do it and where they should make that happen. Don't be afraid to tell people, go here to make this purchase. You are a company selling something, or asking, you may be a nonprofit asking for donations, whatever it happens to be. Tell people, go here and do it, because that's what you want them to do, and that's ultimately what they want to do. That's why they even became involved with your company or your organization. So have lots of very clear calls to action. I'll show some examples of that too. Also, make your email personal, and do this in a couple of ways. One, use personalization to actually refer to each recipient by their own name in your email somewhere, just so you're connected with them in that way if you do know their name already. Also, target your emails as much as you can. You can use the segments tool that I just showed to actually search for individual groups of people in your list to mail them based on things you know about them. So at the very least, when it comes to making your email personal, you should split your list between prospects, people who have not made a purchase before, and people who have made a purchase before. If you do have that information, that's something that I think is important to do, because different messaging is going to be effective with people who've never made a purchase versus people who have. So if you can do that, that's one way you can try to make your email more personal, by targeting your messaging differently for customers versus non-customers. This can be true too of sending people special messages when it's close to their birthday, if you know that, or if you know what sort of products they purchase, keeping your email focused on that kind of thing. There's a lot of ways you can make things personal. Also in that, you can be more personal in your emails as well. This doesn't have to be like your website where it might be more business focused. You can show a little bit more of your personality in your email, just like with a blog, because you want people to connect with you in these messages. Now, if you're a large corporation, it won't necessarily work that way, but if you're a local business dealing with people, the more you can connect with them, then the more likely they're going to be to keep coming back to your business. So use this as a more relaxed way to connect with people, so they want to keep coming back and keep reading your emails. And also link back to your site everywhere you can with inside your email, as I've written here, within reason. You don't want to go too crazy with links. Not everything in your email should be a link, but you should have links in titles. You should have links for images. You should have links that are very clearly labeled as links and highlighted as such, so people can see them and take action with them, because you want people to be able to, as soon as they decide they want to go back to your site, they should see a link there that will let them do that. But let's look at some examples here. First example, and this may be one, if you've been to one of my webinars before, you may have seen this, because I really like this email. It's a very good example of making an email scannable. You can look at this email and in 20 seconds see everything that it is about and how you should take action with it. They've got some new brushes. They want to show you how you can get this look, and they have some videos they want you to watch. Very large titles, links in each place, and some images illustrating each main point, which are probably also linked back to where they want you to go. And I can see that very quickly. And then if I'm interested in that, I can also look over here on the left, and they have some other information in the sidebar that they change up slightly every email that goes out. And this is a template inside of Vertical Response. They didn't make this themselves, the actual layout. They just used one of our layouts and plugged in their own content. Another example here that you probably see a lot, also because I like it, is Biz Journals. And they're just talking about one single item here, they have a new benefit for their print subscribers, and they have a single line at the top describing what this is about with their benefits broken down into bullet points. And then a link here, how do I access print content? That could not be simpler. And that's something for you to keep in mind with your own emails that you're creating. You want to keep your paragraphs to make sure things are scannable. You want to keep your paragraphs very short, and in many cases you want to use bullet points to call things out, because most people are not sitting down and reading your entire email, beginning to end. So using things like bullet points and make it easier for you to get information in front of them while they're scanning through. Only thing I would say about this Biz Journals email that I would improve is I would actually turn the title here into a link as well. So as soon as people see introducing a new benefit, they can click on it to go read more about that benefit, just like they can do down here. And here, this email is one of my favorites. It's a newsletter that goes out from a chiropractor, and she sends it out once a month. And in it, she keeps her emails very interesting. Now, I use this as an example because a chiropractor is not someone who you would think of as a great example of a company who should be sending emails out to people. Why do you need to hear from your chiropractor? Are there new bone cracking equipment that you should know about? And not usually going to be the case. But she's keeping connected to people with her newsletter, so the next time they need a chiropractor, they think of her. And also, so they want, if they have a friend who needs a chiropractor, they can forward this email over to them, and that friend can immediately know something about this chiropractor before they go and visit her. So here she keeps it very simple with a personal message at the top. She has a picture of herself, also to keep it personal. And then here's how she stays connected. She has a recipe of the month, a very simple recipe to keep people healthy beyond just their bones. She also has kind of a funny vertebrae of the month section where she talks about your different vertebrae. And then she has a calendar of things that she has going on. Very simple, also very easy to scan. There's more information in here really than in the previous two emails, but you can still look at this in 20 seconds and see everything that it's about. It's broken up, it's clean, it's clear, and it's interesting and personal. So it is a great example of what to do with a newsletter. So now, of course, as well as your articles and content in your email, you also have your media, your images, and your video. Some things to keep in mind when dealing with either of these things. One, around 40% of users have images turned off, so you have to keep that in mind. So because of that, you don't want to go too over the top with your images. Otherwise, people won't see anything when your email arrives in their inbox. So you want to try to maintain a text-to-image ratio of around 80% text to 20% images. That can vary, certainly, and you don't have to have any images in your email if you don't want. But around the ratio of 80% to 20% is important. You also want to use alt text for your images. This is backup text that is useful for two reasons. One, if you have any blind subscribers who are reading your email through the use of a screen reader, that screen reader will read the alternative text to them. Also, if, as you may already know, many email browsers initially block images when the email arrives in the inbox, requiring the recipient to click a button or a link to turn those images on. And in many cases, when the images are turned off, those browsers will display the alt text for the image so people can see what it's about and make a more informed decision on whether or not they want to turn the images on. So also, as far as video is concerned, I mean, video becomes more of a big deal online all the time. We all know about YouTube. It's been around for a very long time now. You can start using video in your own business to promote things or just to get people's attention with something interesting. But the important thing with video is you don't want to include it in the email. What you want to do is take a screenshot of the video itself and put that image in the email, and then people can click that screenshot that will link them to the video and it will play in their web browser. The reason you want to do that is that most email browsers don't support video, and so the video won't work if it's simply embedded in the email. It won't play for people. Here, just to show some examples, we see examples of what emails look like when the images are turned off. So you can see that nothing appears here because this is just one big image. So you have to click display images below to see anything. And then here as well, they use two images for their email and nothing displays. These are extreme examples, but imagine if they had, half images, half text, you would still see a lot of question marks and blank spaces in the email. So something you should do when you're building your own emails, I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment, is actually look at what your email looks like without the images turned on, so you can make sure it still looks good. and would still encourage people to turn the images on themselves uh, if they have the chance to do that. But I'll show you how to actually test in that way. Again, you see right here, this is in Gmail. They have an option to display images below or always display images. So also, if someone really likes you, they might click always display images and then you don't have to worry about it again, but just something that you have to think about. So we're going to talk about some follow-up and reporting here, and then we're going to go back into an account and look at a lot more stuff. Because after you send your email out, you have to think about some other things you should be doing. One, you should watch out for replies. It's fairly common for companies, for larger companies, to make the reply to address in their email be a box that's not monitored, so that when people actually write back, nothing happens or it bounces back to them, which you don't want to have happen. So you want to actually put a reply to address that people can use in the email, because people are going to reply to your message whether you tell them not to. And it's good to respond to everyone who replies and interact with them. Also, you want to share your email outside of your mailing list. And you can very easily do that now with Vertical Response's new social sharing feature, which I'll show you about here in a moment. So we give you a link to your email that links to a hosted version that's on the web. And you can take that link and put it wherever you want and link other people to your email. So if you're using Twitter or you're using Facebook or using anything else, you can put a link there that people can access whether or not they're on your mailing list. You could even create an archive page on your website where people can access your old emails and newsletters. You also, of course, want to measure the traffic the email has generated to your website, because that's really what the goal usually of the newsletter is, to get people to come to your site. And also, it's useful to measure the revenue that was generated. This could never be an exact science, but to see how much money your email is making you, gives you an idea of what your actual return on investment is from your message. So I'm going to show you how you can measure both those things in your account. And you also should compare your email to previous messages that you've sent out. It's important that you actually do comparisons to see what your trends are for your email. You're probably already keeping an eye on this, but take a closer look at it and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Don't compare a newsletter to some sort of special offer email or vice versa, because they're two different types of messages that you should expect different types of responses to. But now let's jump back into the account and look at some of this stuff in action and how to do it. So going back down here, I want to go back into the email we were looking at before to illustrate some of the things I just talked about. So go back into the email that we were working on earlier. So first, I was talking about how you should use alt text for your images, backup text that describes what the image is about. How would you do that in here? All you would do is you'd choose the image that you want to add alt text to, click the image button, and then type in your alt text right there. This is the Golden Gate Bridge, so that's fairly simple. You could also use this to describe an action you want people to take when they see the image too. Either way, just some sort of description there is good. Click update, and now my image has alt text. As simple as that. Also talked about personalization. You can see here how there's already some personalization in this template that I chose, hello first name. That's going to pull in the first name field from the list I use for my email. You're probably already using that. As you may already know, there's an insert drop-down menu here in the toolbar. So if I wanted to add first name or any other field to my email, I can just go insert and choose that field from here. So I can go insert first name. You see, when I do that, it asks me for a backup value. And default, this backup value can be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to type in reader. You could type in any word or sentence. I click insert field. And now the way that's set up, if I have their first name on my list, they will see their first name there. If I don't, they will see the word reader instead. So you can also manually type it in. You would just make it look just like that. So as you may have also already noticed with this insert, only our standard fields appear here. So what if you wanted to personalize this with something, a custom field that you created yourself, like birthday or last product purchased, or your person's favorite robot, should you have a store that sells robots, or favorite wine, should you have a winery. If you create a field like that, that's not going to appear in the insert drop-down menu, but what if you wanted to personalize with that information? How would you do that? You would do that by just manually typing in the name of the field. So I could go, I have a field called wine for favorite wine. And so that would be the field that I would type in. Now what if I wanted to have backup text as well in case I didn't know their favorite wine, in case that field was blank? I could have a put in the pipe or the vertical line that appears right above the enter key on your keyboard. I would type that in, and then I would type in the backup text that I want. In this case, how many types of wine are there? There are the two, red and white, maybe a third one sparkling. Those are the three major varietals, I believe, is what you would say for wine. So I'm going to go, we'll say that we'll assume that your favorite type of wine is sparkling if you're not actually in my list with that information. So you get the idea of how that works. It's very easy to personalize your message with information from your list, just like that. Type it in or use the insert drop-down menu to make it happen. So that's some more stuff to think about when you're dealing with your layout that you create. Now going back out, well actually, I want to stay here again and show you some other things that you should use in here. How you can do bullets is a very important thing to know how to do. You see here that there is a section for an unordered list and an ordered list. An unordered list is bullet points, and an ordered list is numbers in a list. So if I wanted to do bullet points, I would just click that and start typing in my points. Point 1, point 2, point 3, just like that. You can see how much easier those stand out. Also, when you create links, something you should do with the links, as I mentioned, is try to highlight those links, make them stand out from the rest of your text. So if I create a link to the new flowers, I have a store called Flowers by Jake. Check out our, it is almost Valentine's Day, isn't it? So there we go. Check out our Valentine's Day flowers. I want to link back to my site. So I'm going to create the link for that. Just type to any site here as an example. Click insert. And so now I want to highlight this. Now this is a website I visited before, so it's purple, but other people would see it as blue. But to really make it stand out, maybe I want to bold the text for my link, and that makes it stand out better. So it's always a good idea to bold your link text because that pulls your links out and makes them more noticeable in the email. Also, if you do write longer paragraphs, I would recommend not doing that. Try to keep your paragraphs to around 2 to 3 sentences long to make it scannable. But if you do have a newsletter where you have longer paragraphs, consider actually highlighting the important points in different colors. Like maybe you do some of the points, well, not highlighting like that. That's not what I meant. Hold on here. Well, you get the idea. You can easily mess up your email as well. And then you can do undo to undo your mistakes. There's the undo button. So what I meant, well, it's a better way to do it, I think, is to actually change the color of the text to a different color to make it stand out. You can choose whatever color you want, but I've seen this done with the Yelp newsletter before. They write very long paragraphs in their email, but to make up for that, they actually highlight their links throughout the paragraphs, bold them, and then they also use red throughout the email to call out the subject of the different areas in the paragraphs. And that makes it scannable and makes it easy for me to find the topic that I want to read about. Also, while I was in here, I wanted to show you how you could see what your email looks like with the images turned off. To do that, you can go to Quick Preview, and from there you see there's a link that says Hide All Images. You click that, and you see my email still looks nice with the images turned off, nice being relative to whether you think all these colors go well together. But you can see unhide all images, the image is back, hide them all, goes away. So that still is perfectly readable, looks good, and it's just fine. However, you may have more images, so you want to look at that. The better your email looks without images, the better off you're going to be with your emails. So now let's talk a little bit about the reporting and the social sharing stuff that I mentioned. You probably already have seen that Vertical Response has just released a new social sharing feature in our system that lets you actually share your sent emails, as I just mentioned before. To access that feature, you go in to any email you've sent out, either under Sent Emails or under Reports on your homepage. And you see there is a Share Email link down here. So you click Share Email, and then you let that load up over the course of a few seconds. Then the first thing we present you with is a link to the archived version of your message. And then the first thing we present you with is a link to the archive versions for your message. Can you hear me, computer? I don't know if my computer can hear what I'm trying to do. Sometimes it helps to yell at it. Okay, so here we see there's the link to the email. Looks lovely. So I can take that link and do whatever I want to with it anywhere. Also, you can see here that it lets me post to Twitter and Facebook if I've linked my account to either place. So I just type in my message for my Facebook wall or my Twitter feed, and then I click share email, and it will actually share it to both of those places. Just like that. Let's try this again, and it will actually share it to both of those places. There we go. See, talking louder at the application will make it work. Do that at home. Try that. Do that at the office. I'm sure you will see the same success that I just had. So my message was just posted, just like that. Now, if you've not linked your account to Twitter or Facebook, when you first go here, we'll prompt you to do that. There'll be a link prompting you. And when you click that link to do that, it'll take you over here so it'll automatically take you to this page called social sharing under your profile. And so just to show you how it would work, we'll link Twitter here. So I'm going to link my account to Twitter. All I'm doing is it's taking me to Twitter, where I can enter my username, Flowers by Jake, and password. Allow. Now it just takes me back to vertical response. And they are now linked together. If I ever want to unlink them, I just click those links to unlink them. So it's very easy to get that email out there. And if you're not using Twitter or Facebook for your business, there's no reason not to. They're free, and you can do things like this with them, which is fun, right? Okay. So also I mentioned actually measuring traffic to your website from your email and also measuring revenue from your emails. Revenue is a little bit harder to do, but actually tracking the traffic is not difficult at all. So obviously you have your regular reporting that you're dealing with in your account, your opens, your clicks, your bounces, and your unsubscribes that we see there. But you can also do some more advanced reporting that can take your tracking past that information. The first thing I want to call out is that there is Google Analytics integration. Now, if you've ever attended one of my demos, I always reference Google Analytics integration there because it's very easy to turn on. All you do is put in the name, the domain for the site you're tracking with Google. You can do several if you want. Then you click Save, and then it's turned on. So if you're using Google Analytics to track traffic on your website, as many people are, then when you go into Google Analytics, as we see here, and this is Google Analytics for anyone who's not using that, this is not vertical response. So if you see here in Google Analytics, I can see vertical response email as a source of traffic to my site and how many people have come to my site via that, how many pages they average per visit, how long they spend on my site, how many of them get to the first page and just bounce back without doing anything. You can see here that people who come via that email tend to stay longer on average than anyone who comes through any other referral to my site. Twitter is almost about the same, but the email leads to more pages per visit than the Twitter links did. So that's pretty cool. Also, if you go under ad versions in Google Analytics, you will see everyone who came to your site via emails you've sent out, like people that work here who have been tricked into visiting my site, and then how many pages they visited, how long they were on the site, all that stuff you can see for individual people. So it's a nice way to see the traffic back to your website in Google Analytics. So that's one way you can track traffic to see how many people are actually making their way to your site and what they're doing there. And note, if you're not using Google Analytics and not using anything else to track traffic on your site, it's free. You can sign up for it here. You can also, very helpfully, Google Analytics, and thanks to search engine optimization, Google has managed to get the first ranking in Google for their analytics application. So you'll find it there. Now also, click to conversion tracking is something we provide. With click to conversion, we give you a snippet of HTML code. You actually add this code to any page on your website that you want to track in this way. What happens is we create a new statistic in your account called conversions. It's just like opens and clicks. And then if someone makes their way from your email to a page, they click a link in your email and make their way to a page on your website that includes this code, we will track them in your account as a conversion. So you could put this on, say, a thank you page that follows a purchase, because you know if someone clicks a link in your email, finds an item to purchase, purchase it, and then you're thanking them for it. They've done what you wanted them to do. Therefore, they should be a conversion. So you could do this anywhere on your site. The code stays the same for every email you send out. So you can just move it around your site if you need to. As far as adding it to your site, this code, usually the easiest place to copy and paste this is right above the closing body tag in your HTML if you do handle your own HTML. If you don't handle your own HTML, then you would give this to your designer and they can do it for you. Now the other thing here I talked about was tracking revenue. You can indirectly track revenue by just looking at how much more money you made that day when your email went out. But you can also try to directly track it using our revenue tracking option here. And all this is free to use. You see here we give you another snippet of code, just like that you would copy and paste to your site. And then we would see how much money people who actually click a link in your email are spending once they get to your site. And that would actually be reported as a revenue statistic in your account. This is a little bit trickier than click to conversion because you must be able to pass the purchase amount that they spent into this snippet of code. But how would that work? Well, if you have a thank you page for your purchases already, you probably say on that thank you page, thank you for spending this much money with our website, with our company. So that means for that amount of money to appear on that thank you page, it's being passed to that page from the purchasing page. So there's a little field there that's automatically filling in with that information and knows to grab it. So you or your designer, depending on who's done that, would simply have to take that field that pulls the purchase amount and put it into this snippet, and then it would be pulled in there too, and then it would be sent to us into your account so you could see what your revenue was for each individual email that you mailed. So how all this works for these two things is when someone clicks a link in your email through a vertical response email and goes to your site, then we actually, there's a cookie put into their browser. That cookie, I believe, stays active for 2 weeks unless they clear them out or anything like that. So if they click a link and make a purchase within 2 weeks of having done so on your site, unless something has changed with their browser or they're using a different browser or anything like that, then they would be tracked as either a conversion or for making a purchase on your site and the revenue that they brought back. So something to keep in mind there. It's not perfect. Some people have cookies turned off, things like that, but it gives you an idea of how much money that your emails are generating. But with that said, it looks like we're coming to the end of the amount of time we have for the webinar.